Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to anyone who has ever had to care for another person or a living creature, um, someone who needed help, someone who needed a smile or happiness, and you were the one that was there to do it. Well, happy Mother's Day. It's not to demean or diminish the role of, traditional mom, not at all. But, I do think sometimes we get all caught up in the word mom and we don't really stop to think what it actually means. And what it actually means is a profound relationship of love and care and dedication and devotion. And if that's you, then happy Mother's Day. All right. Now, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I think I slept a little easier last night. You know what I mean? It seemed like the verdict with Lori Vallow. Um, of course, that was Friday. We were all excited, about the whole thing, and so I was still kind of going back and listening to some old testimony and whatnot. And then last night, it was just like it was just not, it was just nice. You didn't have that. I didn't really realize how much there was invested in this case against Lori, and it was 100% related to the terror that JJ and Tylee were exposed to. Number one, the terror of this woman mother who has turned into now an animal. And you're thinking, you've heard the incredulity in Colby's voice. You've heard Larry and Kay Woodcock. People just said, what has happened to this lady? She was Mother of the Year. She devoted, according to Summer and her mom, Lori dedicated herself. She was the stereotypical mother in every sense of the word. And in a very short period of time, or at least what they believed was what appeared to be a short period of time, Lori went from mom to monster. And the question is, how? How in the hell did that happen? So that's what I want to talk about today. So it's going to be, maybe some people are going to find it boring. They're going to bow out, they're going to leave, and they're going to go, no, it's way too much. But for those people that are really interested in this topic and you don't really know much about it, it is actually a quite fascinating topic. Now, one of the things that I've heard Julie Rose say, and look, I don't take her serious for 10 million different reasons. Number one, she's running around asking people that listen to her podcast and buy her books, she's asking them to deed over their properties to her. Well, essentially, what is her charity? But the charity never did anything. There's no evidence of any good works, related to the charity. So there's reason number one. Are y'all happy to start with that as a first reason? So she's a caricature, really. Now then, so I want to talk today. I started a little bit getting into folie à deux, which is madness shared by two, or the old term folly. I often talk about Karen's folly, things I do that are just nutty, and I thought it was a great idea at the time, kind of idea. So madness that is shared by two, and of course that can extend to a wider group of people affected. And please bear with me here. Okay, we're all intelligent, thinking adults. That would also spill over into religion, correct? I'm not saying that you're a madman if you believe in God. That is not what I'm saying. I've talked myself. Y'all know I'm Methodist. Anyway. But in my church, if I start telling people that I'm Mary Magdalene, my preacher is not going to have everybody start worshiping me. My preacher is going to say, "Oh gosh, Karen, let's get you to a doctor. Let's go to the hospital and see what those nice people in the white coats can say to what they can do to help you." So there are limits to that, right? I mean, we do recognize that we are mortal. A healthy person has recognition and realization that I'm just a human being. I'm not gifted with these special metaphysical abilities. I can't pour tea in a cup and then, swish it around and dump it out, and the tea leaves speak to me and tell me things. That's not real. And make no mistake about it, we want that to be real. We want someone to have special powers. We want our fortune cookie to be real. I read my horoscope faithfully, and yet I know it's not real. You want to see someone who's really believing in magical, mystical powers? A pitcher on a winning streak can get really smelly when he refuses to wash his jersey because he might start losing. Okay, so even though that we are aware, we're conscious, we're rational, we're logical, there's a little part of us that still wants to believe in magic. We still want to believe in things that are bigger than us and larger than life. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It's fun, for one thing, right? Let's just keep it simple, stupid. It's fun. It's interesting. If I'm driving down the freeway and I get a moment of inspiration that says, "Ooh, Dr. Karen, stop and buy you a lottery ticket because your numbers are gonna win." And then I get, "Oh, this can be fun." And I go in and I buy it. It's a couple of dollars, not, going to break the bank. And then that evening I think, "Oh, what would I do with the money? Oh, I would do this, and I would open this kind of treatment facility, and I would help in this, and I would do all these different things," right? And then when I don't win, I'm not devastated. I'm just like, "Oh, well, yeah, the next moment of inspiration will be my turn. Perhaps some other person named Karen won the lottery tonight." Okay? So it's fun. We like believing. Santa Claus still comes to my house. The rule is, as long as you believe, he brings fun things. And when Santa Claus comes, he brings a toy. It doesn't matter if you're 25, 30 years old. He brings a toy. He brings something fun because it's fun. The fantasy is fun. But in Folly Adieu, that's different because this is a delusional state, right? Believing in a moment of inspiration for a lottery pick, or teasing your family that Santa's real until you say you don't believe, and then all the adults are like, no, I believe, Mom, I believe, I'm a believer. Right? Because they want to have fun the next morning. So Folly Adieu, or madness that is shared by two, is actually a delusional state. It is made up of several different types of psychiatric syndromes. And it can be a whole family that believes in this delusional idea. Folie en famille, which is family madness, or folie à trois, which is the madness shared by three, or quatre, which is madness shared by four. So, and then the big one that I'm really kind of addressing today which is folie à plusieurs, which is madness of many. Madness of many. I do think that when we look at cults, that's the very definition of folie à plusieurs. That is the madness of many. There's more. It's not just family, although they often invoke that word family as a type of, like a control tool. So with religion or cults, when things get weird and extreme, and a person is now doing things that go against the modern world, you're looking at something that is called folie à plusieurs. Now, the disorder was first conceptualized in the 1800s. Again, when you get into these dang French words, I'm from Louisiana, North Louisiana at that. I struggle a little bit with some of this pronunciation. Lesage and Faret. And originally, when this first began to be discussed in the professional literature, they called it the Lesage-Faret syndrome. And then as all of these medical conditions are identified, they refine them further and further, divide them into more descriptive categories, and that's where we get folie à deux, folie à plusieurs, folie en famille, folie imposée, and then folie simultanée. And that's where I'm going now. So the DSM-5, it says that folie à deux is not really a separate entity from shared psychotic disorder. It's really all the same thing. Okay? So shared psychotic disorder in the DSM-5, if you go back to DSM-4, 3, or the earlier, the shared psychotic disorder, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Folie à deux gets discussed as its own individual classification. So delusions are a diagnostic criteria for psychosis, right? And so you can have a shared psychotic disorder. And as stated, DSM doesn't consider it different. So you can say someone has a delusional disorder, or you can say that someone has some other schizophrenic spectrum or psychotic disorder. So they're breaking out, they're differentiating now between people that are in full-blown psychosis, detached from reality, from the group of disorders that are delusional in nature, where yes, they still are connected to reality. They are capable of going to work or taking a shower or paying their bills, but they have this very bizarre set of beliefs that is notably interfering with healthy functioning. And then when you add the shared experience, then you say, well, there's a subclassification to the whole delusional disorder, and the various subclassifications, folie à deux being just one of them. Then you begin to have some acceptance that, oh, wait a minute. So you're telling me I can be affected by the person who really has the delusion, right? Think about that pitcher in baseball. He's not washing his jersey because he's winning. Don't you understand? When he washes his jersey, then he's going to start losing, because that's the way the baseball gods work. And so then, the catcher starts going, hey, man, Ryan, you stink, man. Why you smell so bad? What do you mean, why do I smell so bad? I don't smell. That's the talent coming off of me, man. The baseball gods have blessed me with holy water. I am not washing my jersey or taking a shower until we lose. Don't you understand how this works? You know, if we did you wash your jersey? Did you take a shower after that giant win? Man, you're going to break the magic, man. You're going to make us lose. I can't believe you washed. And then there's a little rookie sitting over there listening and going, "Wow, these two giants in the Cathedral of Baseball, they're literally saying that if you're winning, you can't take a shower?" Holy hell. I don't want them to know that I've been washing my jersey and showering. And before you know it, as long as the team is winning, there is a green fog emanating through the doors of the locker room. Because no one's showering and no one is washing their jersey because they're winning. All right. So that would move us then into folie à plusieurs or folie en famille, because some people would say a baseball team would be family type interactions, or you could say of many. What would we say about COVID-19? Was this the delusion of the many? Well, there's some people that claim that. There are some people that say it was all shared delusion. It wasn't real, and it was controlled by the messaging of the U.S. government. Look, this was a worldwide pandemic. It wasn't just the U.S. government. But I do think that, you know, you can take opportunity when it falls in your lap, right? And so I think they could have handled it in a way that was less hysteria making, had been a little bit more fact-based, that would lead people to be rational and careful in their behavior choices, but not terrified. Listen, people, I'm still working with little kids who are terrified to go to school. They cannot go to school because there is a killer bug that is trying to get them. They're still in homeschooling. They're still wearing their mask. The parents are just, "Oh my gosh, what have we done to our child? We were just trying to get him to understand that we had to be safe. We had to be careful." And I'm thinking, well, you know, did you yell at people while your child was watching? Did you yell at people that they were not standing 6 feet away from you? Because that would be enough to make a child learn that there's real danger in the air. So you know, again, I know that COVID was real. I got it. It also, from my experience, although some people have been dramatically different, it wasn't horrible for me. I felt like I had a super bad cold, but I'd had the flu before that was, well, put me in the hospital. So, you know, yeah, it was not fun, not by any stretch of the imagination. But you know, some people were very rational. Some people got a little bit freaked out, and the extended family members also, you know, imagine if you have OCD and part of your OCD is being a germaphobe and they announce an exotic new disease. Imagine that special Disney World ride that you're on. And if you are that person and you are horrifyingly terrified of this new disease, you've got other family members that are watching and they're learning, and they too then can become equally as terrified. So I think in some ways maybe we had a little bit of that going on too. This isn't as a political statement, this is as purely people watching people and learning and sharing a delusion. So these shared delusional states, they will begin with a dominant person, the primary. And so some research call it inducer. But I'm going to tell you this right straight up. Using that term inducer, in a research lab, right? I'm talking about in a purely clinical sense. Using inducer as a variable, as the title of one of your variables, it almost seems disingenuous that it's intentional, that the inducer is the person that is injected into the environment who is going to spread this message, right? Now, I have a reason for bringing this up, so just stay with me for a second. If you have someone who's truly delusional, a germaphobe, and there's COVID on the horizon, or like me, I love The Stand, and I'm, Captain Trips. I'm having visions of Captain Trips as I'm learning about, the coronavirus 2019. Well, in that case, the person is literally frightened and delusional, and other people learn and it spreads. But is it possible, using the term inducer or the principal, as being the person who sets off the program or turns on the software, that you're doing this intentionally, that you are wanting to embark on a program where you take a group of people and you create a delusional state. You manipulate the environment intentionally so that this group of people has a shared delusional, sometimes psychotic state. Think about that. The inducer. So the inducer initially forms a delusional belief, and then we call them acceptors, the people who watch the principal or the inducer or the primary, whatever word you want to use. They watch them and they learn from them, and then they too become deluded. So the inducer and the acceptor, or the primary and the secondary, or the principal and their associates, as long as they're together, the high level of influence is there, and they begin to take on one another's beliefs and behaviors and their strategies and their observations. This includes not just beliefs, but it can include the behaviors too will begin to warp and become quite different. As I myself, one moment please.
Sammy just
I myself set my groceries out in the sun for a couple of hours before I brought them in the house. I wiped them and washed them down, literally washed them down. Does that sound like normal, rational behavior? Well, no, it was not normal nor rational. If I did it today, Bill would be like, "Oh, honey, let's go to the emergency room. Something's wrong." Okay? So there is an inducer, which is watching the people from China falling over, like walking down the street and just falling over face first, or falling off their chair, or showing the massive beds where everybody's laying in bed, look like they're, all dying and sick and whatnot. Or I'll never forget the video they showed where they had bodies lying all in the waiting room at the hospital. So that was the inducer. That was the principal stimulus. So I watched that and I go, "Ooh, that just doesn't look good at all. And then in my mind, I started thinking, what must that be like? What will it be like if it gets here? And then I remember Stephen King. And then before you know it, I am telling people, go buy a mask. You need an N95 mask. And I'm putting my groceries out in the yard and I'm spraying them down with vinegar and water. See how that works? Now then, yes, I think there was a bug. No, I don't think that people should have lost their jobs because they refused to put a needle in their arm. If you're vaccinated, if you are isolating from other people, if you're wearing a mask, if you're vaccinated, it doesn't matter if you are confronted with someone who is just infested with COVID, you're not going to get it. It's the way the science works. But we got very frightened and we did this. Willingly, I did it. Everybody did it. We all did it, okay? For safety, because we love each other. We want everybody to be safe and healthy and happy. All right, now then. So that's how it works. There's an inducer, there's an initial, and then the secondaries are the acceptors, or in a clinical setting, the associates. They begin to absorb those ideas, believe those messaging, and then the way they think, their outlook on the world, their cause and effect cognitions, and their behaviors begin to adapt. And if you're all together, you're all doing the same sorts of things. And in my case, I use the example of a baseball team, or the way that we all experienced the lockdown of COVID in the United States, and I think Europe was probably similar. But it, in reality, it could be cults. It could be cult-like figures that do this. Cult leaders, I call them inducers. Nearly always, you can look at these cults, the leader, and they don't really believe what they're saying toward the end. In the beginning, they just want some kind of recognition. They're usually disaffected people that have never had any kind of accomplishment. They don't really have anything that defines them. They usually have a very difficult time making connections with people. Although they may be charismatic, they don't have any long-term friendships, right? So they start out realizing, I can say something and people like it. For whatever reason, I have this ability. In Chad's case, he's LDS. He grew up in an LDS family that was quite pious and observing of the LDS faith. He learned a lot of this, but what was his trigger? His trigger was when he learned by watching Julie Rowe that there was money to be made in visions and dreams. Never mind that he's not having them. He's just a con artist. He's just a fraudster. He's unprincipled. So he recognizes, hey, look, she's making money by having her visions and dreams. Gosh, wouldn't that be nice if I had dreams too? Oh, wait, there's no way for anyone to prove I'm not having them. Kohlberg, development morality. So why don't I just tell people I have them? And then nobody will know that I don't. So Chad isn't gifted with special powers and dreams and visions. He's just unprincipled and weak and sociopathic, disconnected from people, does not feel empathy for others, and all he wants is to feel loved and admired. That's all Chad Daybell wants, is to feel special. He wants to be anything that he's not in reality, and being a cool visionary and dream maker is his ticket. He tells his own kids, oh, ho, ho, we have so much money now. We're going to have so much money. Let's all go out to eat. Before that, they never had any available money. In fact, they declared bankruptcy. So for Chad, he's not a delusional man, a crazy person who affects others. He's an inducer. He's a principal in a science experiment. Let's inject Chad into the environment and see what those around him do. And he began to put together, we know this from Audrey, he began to put together and pick an assortment of people that were just like him. They were disconnected from others, in the case of Audrey and Serena. Or you had someone like Melanie Gibb, who was hungry to be recognized. She was hungry for Jason Mao and Michael Stroud, for all these people to know who she was. So she got sucked into the madness because, oh, look, he really is special. Let me ride on his coattails. So in many ways, a religion that believes in magic to the level that the LDS faith, preaches. And I would say to any fundamentalist Old Testament type of teaching, I think could predispose one to some of this magical thought, right? We already want to believe in magic. Think of me and Santa Claus. We already have a predisposition to wanting magic in our lives. Some people look at love as a vehicle for magic. I think Lori probably did that. To her, being in love was the be-all, end-all of existence. I think she had probably spent her whole life maybe seeking out that Shakespearean, like the mythical flavor of this massive love affair, Romeo and Juliet, or Cleopatra and Mark Antony. But you and I, living in the real world, we know what love is. Love is someone committed to working and bringing home some money so that you can have a roof over your head. Love is, being content to sit in the same room together and laugh your ass off at someone saying something funny on television. That's real love, right? Not this weird kind of desperate, dangerous, hopeless kind of chemical, intoxication. But in some ways, both Lori and Chad, through personality, childhood experiences, combined with the magical mysticism of the LDS teachings, it predisposed them to this kind of lab experiment for Chad as inducer. He's a liar trying to affect people by claiming he has visions. And then Lori, hopelessly desperate for magic, for a life worth worth living. But there were others. It's not Lori and Chad. This is not folie à deux. I am convinced of it after listening to the recordings of Serena and Audrey, to some extent, Hidden True Crime Anna. No. There's another group there. There's a wider group. This whole preparing the people, a vow. These people that are watching these podcasts, they're all in it. This is folly. What? Okay. I'm sorry. Folly plusieurs. This is a madness of many. This is wide-ranging. So the interesting thing about folie à deux or the others is you have an inducer or primary who actually believes what their delusions are. An inducer, I think, is a little more disingenuous and criminal fraud. The interesting thing is, though, if you take these people and you hospitalize them and you separate them, you break them apart from one another, guess what happens to the delusions? They go away. They disappear. They go away. Because they're not being reinforced every day by the primary or the inducer. So they disappear. So Chad was not just doing the teachings and being done, he was keeping constant contact with people and interjecting his beliefs, not his real beliefs, his contrived beliefs. Chad's great, Chad knows all, follow Chad. Those were the beliefs. And he actually used Audrey to make sure that Lori's belief kept being reinforced. I'm not really going to be able to spend time with Lori because I'm still married. I want you to stay in touch with her. And they were feeding each other's beliefs. Same thing with Melanie. Jason Mao is keeping Melanie Gibb in touch with Lori and Serena and the rest of them. It's obscene. It's an obscenity. And listen, more people need to be charged in this. Even if you just charge them under fraud, the amount of money changing hands, the things that they did, you can find some charges if you care to. Now, folly and passe is where you have one person who is deluded and then other people get infected with those ideas. Folly simultanee is when you have two people that are actually all on their own affected. They're psychotic, right? Each one all by themselves. They're psychotic. But when they come together, like let's say in a mental health treatment facility, when they come together and they start acting out their psychosis or talking about their delusions, guess what happens? Their delusions change and they begin to have the same belief. It's actually amazing to watch happen. Two psychotic people together will actually begin to act out each other's psychosis. It's fascinating. It is very, very interesting to watch. Very interesting. So you do see folly ado as a like a psychiatric. It's an interesting psychiatric state, but when you break it down to its components, you begin to realize, okay, maybe it's not quite as rare as we thought, especially in 2023 when we have the influence of the internet. All of us are talking to each other all the time through social media. We are being influenced by people. We don't know anything about them, you guys. I've seen this myself on YouTube. The tribe mentality on YouTube is alive and well. I've seen people be confronted with actual real life, look at this proof, and they are so committed to their tribe that they cannot go, wow, this has been like a really cool, creator that I've really enjoyed, but what she's saying and doing is bad. Like, she's really hurting people. No, you can't do it. You get in there, you develop the shared delusional belief, you're being told something and you buy into it, and then you lose the ability to see it. The cool thing is, if you step away from it for a month or a couple of weeks, then you go, no, that really was a crazy moment that person did whatever. All right. So you can, in this type of folly and passe, you can get away from the primary or the inducer. You can get away from them for a while, and then the belief system will extinguish and you don't have those delusions anymore. You're confronted with you and you go, wow, I can't believe I ever believed that. That's kind of crazy. Now then, with folly simultanee, you're talking about two people that are psychotic and they just teach each other they mold each other's beliefs so that they start looking like the same belief. And it is not very often that you come across a cult that has no psychotic people. Most cults, they have attracted those with psychosis. But you also get very good people that are in these cults that are legitimately looking for, utopia. So you got to be very careful. This is one of the reasons why cults are very, very dangerous. They're very dangerous. You can take a group of very good people looking for a utopia, a meaning in life, magic, if you will, and then you interject a few psychotic people who may be criminally insane, and then you've got a real problem on your hands. Like who? Like Lori Vallow. And again, I am of the belief that there are people in this organization bigger than Chad Daybell. Chad Daybell did not influence this number of people and have this many people believing in him without other people higher up knowing. Maybe they all wanted to believe in magic. Now, shared delusional disorder can and does have biopsychosocial effects. It can impact a person's overall sense of well-being. Excuse me. Anxiety and stress can go through the roof when they're in this shared delusional state. Depending on how severe the belief system, how big it reaches, the worse it can get. And I definitely think for Lori, she was all in. She was Lou after Chad was able to manipulate her. Would she have arrived at these beliefs on her own without his influence? I don't believe so. I think part of why she bought into this and began to accept these delusions as real, like JJ's been taken over by a demon, and so the only way to save my child is to kill the body. I think that would never have become active in her mind if she had not been so heavily manipulated. And I don't know how Melanie Gibb sleeps at night. Melanie Gibb was pushing this relationship. Melanie Gibb was pushing this relationship. We heard it on the stand. We heard her lie when she was talking to Nate Eaton. We saw Jason Mao freaking out during questioning. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing to Lori and Serena. They knew that they were manipulating those women as a following. Just like Warren Jeffs knew what he was doing when he was manipulating all those people. Give me your children. I'm going to keep giving you wives, but you got to give me the children. Ugh, makes me feel sick when I think about it. So people that are in this shared delusional state, they have a significantly higher level of depression and anxiety than the general population. It is a very uncomfortable experience, especially if it's my opinion. I think that when people are doing this intentionally, like Chad Daybell, Warren Jeffs, I might even say some of the mainstream mega preachers, I think they know what they're doing. They're the ones flying around in Lear jets and purchasing 3, 4, 5, 10 mansions. You think they don't know what they're doing, people? Last I heard, Jesus spent time wandering around out in the desert with no shoes on, not languishing by the pool in Hawaii. You know what I mean? But the people that are being manipulated is never conducive to good mental health. Whether it's a narcissistic, abusive husband or wife that's manipulating you, or it's your religious leader that is manipulating you, or it's a teacher, it's a pedophile and you're a young person. There's always that psychological mental health outcome. The body knows. The body knows when things are just off the rails. So the main two contributors for being able to have the shared delusion is stress and social isolation. And we heard that from Serena. She said that she was in Connecticut. She was alone. She had nothing to believe in. We've heard Lori say to Colby, "You don't know. I didn't want to be alone." People that are socially isolated together tend to become more dependent, and the inducer becomes more influential. Well, what did they do to us during COVID? Shut down the restaurants, shut down the churches, shut down the schools, shut down the places of business, do your business online. It was a terrible social experiment. The people were badly affected for a lot of different reasons. And, you know, if you're on that baseball team where nobody's taking a bath, it's pretty, locker rooms can be a pretty gross place when they're stinky. So part of the treatment for what Lori and Chad and Serena and Melanie Gibb are experiencing is removal from the inducer. So Melanie Gibb, why the hell are you still in Arizona when your husband is in Utah? What's that about, Melanie? Oh, because you have a primary that is in Arizona. Because there's someone in Arizona that is influencing Melanie Gibb. Wonder who that could be, y'all. Should we take some guesses? Stress is the second factor. It is a very common factor in most mental illness that is developing or worsening. You can also be genetically predisposed to some of these conditions. And therefore, if you've already kind of got the genetics set up for it, and then you are exposed to an abuser or a primary, an inducer, then you're more easily transitioned to their way of belief. This is one of the reasons that it's really important for little kids to be taught to have their own opinion, to be polite, but be able to state their own opinion, i.e., disagree. People, little kids, they need to know who they are. It's a mentally healthy step to ask your kids, what do you stand for? What do you think makes life worthwhile? What are your responsibilities to your community and to the greater humanity? Help your kids and yourself learn to know, who am I? And who am I going to be led astray? Am I going to let a bunch of people tell me that if I don't, mass bully one person on YouTube, then they're all going to like unsubscribe and leave my channel? They're going to exert that force on me. You have to do what we do. You have to think what we think. And if we think somebody is not worthy of a channel, then how dare you think they're worthy of a channel? You got to be willing to stand up and go, no, I'm not going to do it. I know that if I did that, I'd get a lot more subscribers. I know that I'd get a lot more people that were following, but it goes against who I am as a human being. I don't want to be a part of bullying another human being. I just not going to do it. Right? Got to know who you are because it makes you healthy. Stress is a risk factor for any of this type of shared delusional state or psychosis. When we are under or in distress or under stress, our adrenal glands will release a high level of a hormone called cortisol. The cortisol increases levels of dopamine, and dopamine is what we call the addiction drug. It feels good. We like it. All right? We like dopamine. You take an opiate, you're going to get a high level of dopamine. You have sex, you get dopamine. You go buy something new, you get some dopamine. And so we like dopamine. It feels good. Andrew Huberman has a podcast where he talks about ways to get dopamine hit. It's pretty fun. So we like dopamine. And yes, stress, anxiety releases dopamine. Why do you think people are taking methamphetamine? Why do you think people take Ritalin when they're not, ADHD? They like the rush that they get from the dopamine. And so you get your dopamine hit. It feels good. You want more of it. And so you go back and you expose yourself over and over and over to the stress inducer. Now, for me, it's disaster movies. I love disaster movies. I'll tell you something else I love too. I love roller coasters. I love roller coasters. I can't tell you how much I like roller coasters. And I may be very calm and kind of sleepy in the morning, and you get on your first roller coaster. And then when we're coming off the roller coaster, I'm the one in the group going, come on, girl, we got to get back on. We got to get back in line. And my daughter's like, Mom. Yeah, get back in line. Come on. Wasn't that fun? No, Mom. I don't want to do it again. Okay. All right. So different people have different ways that they get their dopamine hits. Some people, it's fear, it's danger. For some, it's religion and the end of the world. Every time they go and they buy all that prepper food, what are they getting? Dopamine. Every time you go to church and you get told that if you don't live your life a certain way, you're going to burn in the fiery pits of hell, what do you get? Dopamine. It's just, why do you think people play baseball? Dopamine. You know how many these are professional. You know how many professional athletes vomit before they go play the game? Because they're so nervous and stressed. They love it. They love it. Look at Tom Cruise. That man jumps out of airplanes because it's fun. Me and you look at it and go, are you crazy? All right. So these cult leaders like Branch Davidian, David Koresh, Warren Jeffries, or Warren Jeffs. And yes, I'm going to say it, Chad Daybell, but I think there's others higher up in the organization than Chad Daybell. I believe it in my heart and soul. They are inducing stress. Stress causes your adrenals to release cortisol. Cortisol makes you have a dopamine spike. And people are hooked. It's a drug, and we like it. All right, what's the treatment? Separate them. Just get them away from each other. Move them away from each other. What does that mean for Lori? Well, Lori is probably coming to terms with the fact that it was all BS and that she was misled. Now, in her situation, it's a little bit different because she grew up in the LDS faith. I think that predisposed her to Chad's particular lies and manipulation, and she may have a harder time waking up to reality. Summer knows reality. Her sister knows reality, and Summer is a religious woman. Summer is LDS, okay? So Summer will be a big help to Lori. But when Lori has this realization, her world is going to splinter. Because she killed her children. And she undid a marriage that was a great marriage. But as soon as she started having contact with Daybell, that was it. Charles was done. He begged for help. No one would listen. Why do you think it is? Could it be that you're living in a community that is 95% LDS? And so the lies that Chad Daybell is telling are very similar to things that people are hearing in church their whole life. And so they're like, well, why are you acting like this is a big deal? Maybe you're the one that's crazy. Of course we should believe in God. Of course we believe in Moroni. See what I mean? See how it would have made it very difficult for Charles to sound the alarm in an area where everybody had this shared belief. Don't get me wrong. Everybody at my church believes the same thing. We all get up and, say the Apostles' Creed. We all do. Everybody believes the same, okay? So if somebody comes in and starts telling me how they're afraid that God is mad at them and going to punish them, I'm not going to say psychotic. I'm not going to do that. I am a religious person. I get it. But I also get if somebody walks in and says, no, really, Dr. Karen, I am Mary Magdalene, then we're going to have a little bit of a problem. All right? All right. There's also antipsychotic medication. I suspect they probably have Lori on it, or they've tried and she may be refusing it. There are other conditions that can go along with this, but mood disorders tend to be the most apparent in a either impulse or simultaneous. Antipsychotics, anti-mood, mood stabilizers, those are the most often prescribed medications, and therapy. Lots of therapy. But yet none of that will work as long as they can be in contact with each other. You've got to separate them. All right. Melanie Gibb, pack your bags, woman. Get your hind end up to Utah where your husband is. Get away from whatever that is going on in Arizona, because it is not healthy. Right? Okay. I'm done. I told y'all this was going to be boring. I tried to make it not so boring. And you know what? I'll be back another day. See y'all later. Bye.